You can always record me. You never have to ask.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
What I was going to say is that with a Kubernetes integration, you have to concern yourself with writing how you're going to build and deploy your software. So your strategies, for example, the environments where you're going to deploy to, if you're going to have blue-green deployments or canary or all that stuff. That's all manual with Kubernetes integration. So Kubernetes integration is still making use of GitLab CI. Now, if you use Auto DevOps, we automate some of that for you. The reality is that Auto DevOps covers only a minute number of use cases. For example, if you have a .NET app, Auto DevOps may not be an ideal way for you to deploy. So you still have to write everything manually, even if you're deploying to Kubernetes. You can use a lot of the templates that we have in Auto DevOps, and that's what a lot of people do. So if you caught the chat from the NASA person, he said, like, we took a lot of inspirations from Auto DevOps to like model all of these modern DevOps workflows. So that's a big part of the value of Auto DevOps, that it serves as a template for you to know what modern DevOps practices looks like. So, but you still have to do a lot of manual work. Now, the difference with serverless, big difference, is that developers don't have to focus on the infrastructure that they're deploying to. So that is, you don't have to concern yourself with a Kubernetes cluster. You don't have to create one. You don't have to, well, I mean, it depends, right? Like with Knative, like somebody's going to provide you with the space to deploy to, probably an operator within your company. But a lot of the times developers don't have to think about that. And with AWS Lambda, it's the same thing. So developers can only focus on writing the code for their functions, and serverless will just make them work. So we're doing that in a couple of different ways, but the main way that we're doing it in serverless is that we have templates for both your GitLab CI.YAML and your serverless YAML. So developers focus on writing the code for their functions, and the rest kind of just happens. With Kubernetes integration, you have to know a lot about Kubernetes to just make a simple deployment. And Kubernetes can be quite complex. So a lot of the complaints from the world of developers is, I want to focus on application development. I don't want to have to learn this new Kubernetes platform technology that, you know, it's here today, but it's probably going to be something new tomorrow. And yeah, that's right. That has been the case over and over in the world of technologies. Is there's this new wave, and we have to focus a lot of resources on learning and stuff like that. And then tomorrow it's gone and it's something new. Like that happened with Docker and cloud native, containerization. It's all like this. It has a lot of value, but yeah, so developers want to focus on app development. So that's kind of the main difference in my mind. Of course, there's a lot of nuance and a lot of small details that have to do with a lot of other things. But at a high level, it's that serverless focuses less on infrastructure and CI/CD. So no writing your CI.YAML and stuff like that.
Okay. High level, it's good. It's a good understanding. Now, yeah. Okay, next thing. Looking through the issue of customization, or in general, looking at different bits and pieces.
Customization of what, sorry?
I have to discover on my own, that's what I want to say. But I feel a bit unclear on the hierarchy and relations. So okay. We have groups, and you have told me that groups do not have deployments, or Tori told me there are no repositories within groups, but groups are a separate thing. Then you have projects, and within projects, repositories. So, for example, I was reading the issue that we're going to be working on, that when you enable Kubernetes, then a new repository is created. So I was thinking, okay, there's a new repository, but what's in this repository? Where does your application code live? How does it link to this repository? How does the cluster know, like, how are all these things connected? So I think I will need to start reading and start making a diagram on my own, because
that particular issue is a little complex. You're right. But yeah, I guess it's worth talking about it. So hierarchy, when it comes to anything, is that you have a GitLab instance at the top, and you have settings on that instance that affect everything that live under it. So like auto DevOps is one of those settings. Yeah, maybe if I show you, do you want me to show you as I talk through this, or would you rather just talk?
Maybe some visual aid would be good. And if it
Okay.
doesn't work, I'll let you know.
Okay, yeah, I don't want it for it to be overwhelming or anything, but let me know. All right, so let's bring up an instance. So this is an instance, and here, all the instance level settings are in this admin area. So if I click on this admin area and I go into settings like CI/CD, here, for example, you see the check mark for auto DevOps. If this is checked, it affects every group, every project, like everything under the sun of this GitLab instance.
Right.
So that is, and all of the settings here is kind of, they're mainly the same. Anything that you set at the instance level will affect all of GitLab.
And a company can keep using multiple instances?
Oh yeah, you can. I mean, it's dumb to do that and not advised by us, but a lot of people do it. It's like GitLab is so easy to get started with that, let's say if you work at a company that is using Jira, and each team, like they are using Jenkins and they're using like all these disparate CI tools, and there's a new person that comes in and knows that GitLab is better and knows how to use it, they'll stand up an instance and show their team how to work on it, and then they'll put all of their work there. But there are other teams that are using Jenkins and stuff like that. And then the same thing happens in a different department within the same company. Now you have two instances. And so that happens a lot in the sales cycle when they approach us and they want to buy like a higher license other than free. And one of the problems they have is saying, well, so we have about 4 GitLab instances internally, and we want to like merge them all into one. So yeah, it's dumb and it's not advised, but people still do it. Yeah, so that's the, but generally, rule of thumb is that people will have mainly one. And that's where everything happens. So that's...
If you don't want auto DevOps in all your environment, in all your instance, you wouldn't check that, and then you would manually configure the projects that...
That's right. You uncheck this, and then you manually add CI/CD to each one of the projects.
Okay.
So that's the highest level, which is the instance. Now, then you have groups. And groups are nestable. So you can have within a group, you can have a subgroup, and within that subgroup, you can have another subgroup. And you can nest this like as many times as you want. I don't know. I've never tested how many levels you can go deep. But so groups can have subgroups, and then at all levels, you can have projects. So let's say at this top level, I have group 01. I can attach projects to group 01. Or I can have a subgroup within group 01. And this is what we do at GitLab. So GitLab has so many things going that our group is called GitLab org. And this is the entire company. This is GitLab.
Oh, so this is a group, not an instance.
This is a group, yeah.
Or a project.
The instance is gitlab.com. And gitlab.com is used not only by GitLab, it's used by the world. So we have a group within gitlab.com. And our group is called GitLab org. And that's the organization of GitLab. And that's every project that you can think of is here. So like our most famous ones are GitLab, the product, but you can also see what groups are here are the website, like www is the website, marketing is another group, secure, and there's like many groups within the GitLab group. And so these are all subgroups.
Can we pause? So
yes.
Groups equals projects, or okay, groups are hierarchy of, let's say,
so
people.
Think of the instance of GitLab, in this case is gitlab.com. The group is GitLab org, right? And then we can have projects under that. So
don't have subgroups
or subgroups, right?
So it's just a hierarchy, and then they're linked to projects. So by
That's
group,
correct.
we specify like the teams, let's say in GitLab, GitLab org.
Well, that's one thing. Yeah, that's one thing. So teams like the marketing team will have their own group, and within that group, they'll have projects. Here you see the serverless team this is a subgroup, and within that subgroup, there are projects. So there is the example project and the runtimes project, but the serverless is a subgroup.
Are projects an independent thing that are linked to the group, or?
Yeah, projects can only live within a group.
Okay, so
if you want to have a project, you need to have a group. You cannot have a project without a group.
Right. And can you create projects on any level of?
If you're an admin, sure. But
So,
then like there are some people that only have access to a group. Like if I have a secret group here that I want to create only for you and I, only you and I have access, and nobody else can create projects.
And we have projects on the GitLab.org level.
So yeah, so GitLab.org has many projects. Most famous ones are GitLab. So GitLab is the GitLab, where's GitLab? So GitLab is the product. So this subgroup called GitLab is the GitLab product, what you install. And so this is the GitLab product. There's another very popular project here, which is www.gitlab.com. This is the website. Oh, is this not the right nomenclature?
I think there's an extra.
So here you can just start typing and it'll show you. Oh yeah, I thought I had typed it right. Oh, so this website is not under the GitLab org group. It's under GitLab.com. And I think that that's all the assets for the web. Yeah, so this is the website, but it's under a different group. So maybe that was not a great example. But yeah, that's basically as you can see that. Let me see what's here. Oh, okay. See, this is more like for internal stuff. Like you see customer success, account management, like all the departments within the company have a lot of stuff here on GitLab.com.
But these are.
Which is dumb. We should have that on the GitLab org.
These are specific for the website and not the product. So
that's correct. Yeah.
The work for the product is again under subgroups and projects.
That's correct. That's the right hierarchy. So going back to my example, sorry, this one. So I have a group. This is group one. And within group one, I can have a project or another subgroup. So this group has settings, and I can attach things like a Kubernetes cluster to the group. And then every project under the group could make use of the cluster. And a lot of people do it this way. So let's say if your company has 100 projects, it's like a lot of work to provision 100 clusters for people to use. So you just provision one cluster at the group level, and it's available for 100 projects to use. So if they want to deploy their stuff into their cluster, they can. Or you can also attach a cluster at the instance level. So if you have 1,000 groups, then it's basically available to all of the groups and projects within that instance of GitLab. Now there's nuance there because there's some security settings that you can set. So you know, some people may not have access to it, but that's the gist of it. You set it at the instance level, it's available to everyone. If you set it at the group level, then it's available for all the projects under that group. And same with the settings. So just like I showed you that setting for auto DevOps at the instance level. So let's say your administrator turned off auto DevOps for the instance, but you say, hey, no, I want my group to default to use auto DevOps. So you can turn it on at the group level or off.
Okay.
And the same with other things. Like if you set up a CI variable at the group level, like a secret, let's say for your AWS account, and you want everybody to be able to create machines and whatever, you can set up those credentials at the group level, and then they will be available to every project. that's under that group.
That's the birth of 100 more questions, but I'll leave it to that for now.
Okay.
And okay, so we have an instance of GitLab that a company is advised to use only one instance. Under this, they can create groups to represent projects, I guess.
Well, no. So groups can represent many things. More often than not, a group generally represents a department within the company. So let's say a group can say could be security, and then all the projects that have to do with security are under that group. Another group could be software development. Then all of the microservices that your company is working on are going to be a project within that group, and so on and so forth. But you can really structure it however you want. It's very flexible. But more often than not, a group could also represent a segment of your product. So a lot of companies segment their products. Let's say if you're in retail or in e-commerce, like all your website stuff will be a group. All your mobile stuff will be another group. Backend stuff will be another, or back office would be another group. And then within that group, you have multiple projects that could represent the microservices or the monolith that you use for that part of the product.
Okay, yeah, because I can imagine many companies not using GitLab for their marketing projects, for example, or.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's a pity because it's all version controlled and it's very powerful. So we are seeing more people start using GitLab as their issue tracker for everything. So let's say there are certain projects that don't use the repo to hold code, but they use a project, like when you go into a project here, to start creating issues that have to do with anything. They could be marketing, they could be sales, that could be a lot of stuff. So we use it like that at GitLab. So I was just recently speaking with a colleague about KubeCon, and I think you might have seen this this issue. So this is corporate marketing. So this is the marketing group. And within that group, they have a project called corporate marketing. And within that group, they have issues to track all the marketing activities, activities that they do. So like this one is for KubeCon. And here they have event details, cost, campaign, all of that stuff. So, this could happen in every company, and it's a great way to keep information organized and centralized and just use one system. So
yeah. So maybe before we move to a roadmap, you could explain a bit about repositories specifically for development in relation to either auto DevOps or a Kubernetes integration.
Yeah, so let's talk about projects and repositories. So a project is, as I said, kind of that collection of work. So a project has issues. So like the website is a project. That project has issues, has a repo, like all the files that go into the website. But you don't have the necessity to use a repo when you have a project. So like if you look at this project, it has issues that exist within it, but the repo is not being used. So there are no files in the repo. So if you're doing software development, you'll probably use the repo. If you're not doing software development, you probably won't use it. So let's say a lot of people, for example, use the project for the wiki. And they use the wiki as an information collection of like policies. Like we use the handbook on the website. A lot of people have their handbook on a wiki that's only available internally. So we see a lot of projects that don't have a repo for that reason.
There's no code.
That makes sense? Basically. There's no code. Yeah. So they create pages within wikis and they send like, they create a handbook and this is the title of the page. And then once you create like a home page, then you can link more pages to it. And you can have like this whole very complex structure of a wiki. I don't know if you use products like that before. One very famous one by Atlassian, it's called Confluence.
Confluence I've used, but I always found navigating between Jira and Confluence confusing because I didn't know the exact difference.
Yeah, it's a different product, but you're right. So this is kind of what the project can hold. So the project can only be used, let's say, for an there's a board. Yeah, for a board. So let's say a lot of people use the project to just use a Kanban board.
Yeah.
They have open, in progress, and closed, and they don't use anything else of the project.
I'm going to do that for myself, I think, to put some structure in my work. So
yeah.
If
and it's good to get experience on how to use the product too.
Exactly. So if I had a static website that only holds information, I could use a wiki and...
Well, so the wiki is presented inside of GitLab.
Right.
So if you had a static website, you probably use a repo.
So I would still have CSS, right? And
yeah. So when I create this, this is how this is displayed. You see text only, and it's markdown.
Yeah.
So there's no, I couldn't add a style sheet.
So if I create a project for myself, I could use the wiki to add all the resources I use to learn about Kubernetes. And then
Absolutely.
I could use issues to create issues for learning different resources, for example, and then keep track of my reading.
Absolutely. You could have an issue board of things you want to read, things you are doing. Absolutely. You could do that. Now, if you make use of a static website, you probably use GitLab Pages for that. So I don't know if you're familiar with GitLab Pages or GitHub Pages, but that's like our free hosting of a static website content. So there are these engines, like Jekyll, it's a very famous one, that allow you to generate a full website just by editing a template. So as I said, Jekyll is a very famous one. I actually did my sister's website on GitLab Pages. Maybe if I'll show you that. That's a cool example. And like with minimal effort, really, all I did was fork a template. So all of these files are her website. And I forked a template called Orbit, and you can see kind of what the template looks like. And I just changed the content and deployed it. And like GitLab is hosting this website for her. Let me show you
like WordPress, but...
Yeah, but like on steroids. Yeah, because you can do a lot more. Like in WordPress, you're limited. Well, and WordPress has a lot more functionality too. Like, there's a lot more templating and user access controls and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you want to...
So this is hosted for free by GitLab. And that's kind of a direct response to what's called GitHub Pages, which is the same deal. Like it's a free service to host static sites.
Okay.
Yeah, but I feel we're getting off track. But yeah, so that's all the things that you could hold within a project. If you're holding GitLab Pages, though, you are using the repo. You are using the repo, and you are using code. But as I said, you don't have to.
Okay, so going back to the question of a new repo is created when you enable Kubernetes.
No.
Oh, because that was...
So I could enable, so when you say enable Kubernetes, what I read by that is I add a Kubernetes cluster to my project. So like here, I have 2 clusters, but no repo. This is a project that has 2 clusters and does not have anything in the repo. Of course, if I want to make use of the clusters, I'm going to write some code and have a deployment script and things like that. But one is not necessary to have the other.
Okay, I got this from the custom configuration where the proposal says That's sorry. When file is present, create and use dedicated Kubernetes repo. sorry. For relevant instance group.
Okay, I see what
For
you're saying.
instance, when the Kubernetes integration is enabled, GitLab creates a dedicated repository accessible.
Yeah. So in that context, it's different. So what that's saying is, when I create a Kubernetes cluster, create a dedicated repo for that cluster. But that's not the same as a project repo. So you can think about this as a secondary repo that's created for that cluster.
Where does it live, and what does it do, and what does it contain? Are the three questions that came to my head when I read it.
Yeah, so it lives in the GitLab instance, of course, where you create it, but it's not surfaced to the user in this way.
Is it okay? Is it not surfaced at all? Is it in the background?
Well, we have to surface the contents because all the configuration is going to go in that repo. And I guess the best way I could explain that is, let's say you create a group level cluster, and then you want to host configuration for that cluster. So in my mind, in this page, we would show you the configuration file. So you can click on it, or you can upload it, or you can do stuff, but we're not necessarily revealing the repo. Although, well, yeah, we probably want to have a way for users to work on this locally.
We probably will reveal the repo now with a custom configuration. So the repository created for Kubernetes is just for the Kubernetes configuration and doesn't have to do with any of the projects you're running, any of the code you're running on this.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. And then you can have it on the group level or on the subgroup level or on the project level?
You can create a cluster at the instance level, group level, or project level. So it'll be in any of those levels.
Okay, and this repository will be created in the equivalent level.
It'll be created automatically by us on the appropriate level where you have the cluster. And of course, so the rub is repos can only live at the project level. So if I only add a group level cluster and there's no project under that group, so that presents us with a challenge. So we're going to need to decide, do we create like a hidden project only to hold this configuration and just surface that, like the configuration information to the user or stuff like that? So we need to talk through it. And actually, I have a to-do to set up some time with Tong and Dylan to talk about this. So we'll probably do this very soon.
And if you create on the instance level, then again, there's no project, right?
Yeah, so you will have to create a group. We'll have to create. So there is one group that I think gets created automatically, and that is called root. Well, so see, root here is a user. Root is the administrator. So I don't know that that's true. So that's one of the things that we have to talk about.
Okay. Sorry, we are off topic, but I think this is very useful.
No, it's important. Yeah. We don't necessarily, like, all of these things tie into the configure stage knowledge transfer that I want to do with you. So, and if we need to put more time, we put more time. It doesn't matter.
I think that's
the important things is that the concepts are clear to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very useful. Okay. So when I have a cluster on the top level, all my projects can run on that cluster, right? Unless I have a cluster on the project level, a new cluster.
That's right.
Okay.
So if you have a cluster, let me show you a good example that I've had here for a talk that I did. So this is a group called Cloud Run. And this group has 6 projects. All of these projects can deploy to the cluster that I set up at the group level.
So groups and projects and subgroups are mixed in one list here? So if I had subgroups here, or
yes,
are
they are mixed. You know, a great example of how confusing that can be is in GitLab org. So in GitLab org, there are many, many things. And the icon here, I think, represents projects versus groups. Yeah, so like a folder is a subgroup. And then this little thing, I don't know what that's called, it's like a flag, is a project.
That's very confusing because they're different.
Well, it's at the beginning it is. I think that once you get used to it, it's easy to spot, like, see, all of these are projects because of this little flag thingy that they have here.
Okay, so a group can have subgroups or projects, and then
Or both, yeah.
Yeah, subgroups will have probably more projects.
Subgroups will definitely have more projects, yeah. So I think that that's the reason that they're created is to like centralize the work for, let's say, a team, and they put like all of their projects in there. So like the database team you saw had multiple projects, but like here, this is a page where you see that they're both, right? So the folder, oh, and there's a little drop down here where you can see all the
projects. And then there are shared projects across groups. I saw shared projects tab at the top.
Well, share projects, yeah.
So these are shared among many groups? And
I guess so. I guess they are.
Okay. So there must be some configuration somewhere to do that, I guess. Add many groups to a project, or a group to many, or a project to many groups.
Sharing a project with a group of users, sharing projects with groups. You can share projects with other groups. This makes it possible to add a group of users. Oh, okay. To a project with a single action. Yeah, that makes sense. Like if you don't want to add 1,000 users that are members of other groups, you just share the project with the group. They automatically have access. That makes sense.
Okay, so for example, the design team can share a project with the marketing team because we might use the same components.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Okay, cool. So for a development project, you would have usually a repo with code, and then that's your pipeline. So this is
no, that's not your pipeline per se. Let me show you what the difference is. Let me show you a project that has both. So here, this is my project, and this is the repo, right? So when I click on repo and files, if you see content there, that means the repo is probably has code that is executed. And then your pipelines, it's what gets executed every time you commit code or every time you initiate a pipeline. That is defined by the GitLab CI.yaml. So this is, if this file is present, GitLab will run a pipeline every time there's a code commit. So this is my GitLab CI.yaml, but these are not my pipelines yet. So every time there's a commit, you go to CI/CD and pipelines, and these are your pipelines. So this is what has run as a result of the code commits that have been made to the repo.
That's clear. And then if you're running that on a cluster, does that run automatically?
No. So, well, it runs automatically on two circumstances. If there's a GitLab CI.yaml, the pipeline will run regardless of if you have a Kubernetes cluster attached or not, because there are many people that don't deploy to a Kubernetes cluster. There are many people that deploy to a VM, or many people to deploy to bare metal servers. So that's regardless of the Kubernetes cluster. Your pipelines will run if GitLab CI.yaml is present, that like we look for that file. If it's present, we'll run a pipeline for you. Or it'll run if there's no GitLab CI.yaml. Let me show you another example of that. So this project has no GitLab CI.yaml, as you can see. So the only other possibility is that it has AutoDevOps enabled. If AutoDevOps is enabled, then it'll run an AutoDevOps pipeline. And those pipelines are clearly marked with this blue label of AutoDevOps. So this pipelines on my other project don't have that label because I have a GitLab CI.yaml file that tells GitLab CI how to build and deploy my project.
And where to deploy.
And where to deploy, that's right.
So if you have bare metal, you specify through that file.
That's correct.
If you don't have that file and you don't have DevOps, it fails?
Auto DevOps. So it's important that we say auto DevOps, because when you say DevOps, I think of like the DevOps practice that teams make. Auto DevOps is the feature.
Yeah. I'm still, I cannot even talk to colleagues because I don't know the yet, which is very...
No, but that's okay. That's okay. I wouldn't expect you to be an expert at this point. We're all learning together, and that's okay.
Okay, so if I don't have the GitLab.yaml file and I don't have auto DevOps enabled,
no pipelines will run.
No pipeline. So
no pipeline.
It won't start running at all?
It won't.
Because there's nowhere to run on, right?
Exactly. So let's go here and let's see that in action. So here I'm going to disable auto DevOps. And so you see that my last pipeline here ran a month ago. So if I go to my files and I go make change, that's generally what kicks off your continuous integration. Let's say I'm going to make a change here and commit. So that change is committed, and you see that no pipelines have run. So my last pipeline still ran 1 month ago.
But there's no message telling you.
Yeah, it's true. There's no message telling you that nothing is going to happen on CI, and I think that's okay, because people know that if you don't have a CI file, nothing's going to happen. If auto DevOps is disabled, nothing's going to happen. I think that's okay. I think that developers are used to this workflow.
Okay, these are definitely.
And then even if I see what you're saying, and coming from a place that's not used to this workflow, I could totally see how that's kind of a foreign concept. That, hey, I was expecting something to happen because I made a change.
Yeah.
Or so even if I run a pipeline here, and I say run pipeline, it's going to tell me you have a missing GitLab CI.yaml file.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the only place where we tell you.
So
if auto DevOps is enabled, then it does.
So if I were a developer, I would expect my pipeline to start running if I have everything configured automatically, and I would notice that it's not running. So if I'm working with somebody else on a project and they have disabled auto DevOps, then I make a change, but I don't notice that it's not running. Or would I notice? Because
you would. I mean, if you go to the pipelines page, you can clearly see that no pipeline ran.
But you have to manually go. So
you have to manually go there. Yes.
Okay, but it's their day-to-day work. So I guess I have to actually learn what the user flows are for developers.
I think that part of your day-to-day work is very much tied to this page. So let me show you an example. So let's go to an MR. So when a developer, well, this is a bad example. This MR is, so when, as a developer, when you submit an MR, it'll show you the status of the pipeline right there. So if you see that little moon, all that, I guess it's not a moon, I guess it's a progress bar.
Circular progress bar.
Yeah, you know that there's a pipeline that's running.
Yeah.
Because you submitted a merge request.
Yeah.
If you see that your MR has a little red X or has nothing at all, then you know to go to the pipelines page and see, hey, what happened with my MR? And then when you go to pipelines, you can kind of start troubleshooting the problem. But yeah, I know that, you know, developers are kind of used to this workflow is what I would say. So it's not necessarily a point of contention that if nothing happens, we don't show you anything. I think that's okay.
Right, okay. We didn't progress at all on our roadmap. We still have chaos engineering.
No, but this is like important core concepts.
Yeah, exactly. It's the core.
Yeah. So it's totally worth spending time talking about this. And I can, my next meeting is not until another half hour. So if you want to go a little longer, we can. Or if you feel like mental overload starting to take over, we can stop.
I have a one-to-one straight after our call with my manager.
Okay.
So in 2 minutes, unfortunately.
All right. Who is your manager? Is it Shane?
Aaron. So he joined in July.
Aaron.
Aaron White.
How do you like working with Aaron?
He's also onboarding. It's cool.
I see.
He's very helpful, but on the other hand, he's still new, so I cannot ask him these questions. For example, I could ask Tori, but then
It's a good thing you have Tori.
Yeah, very good thing.
Tori's the best. I love Tori.
That's what everybody says, like big shoes to fill in, so.
Oh, no, stop. Like, don't think